All right, we're going to be starting here moments in a few moments. We're just going to give people time to get on, and we're going to go ahead and kick this thing off. Really appreciate you guys being here, and welcome to the broadcast. All right, this broadcast, it's going to be challenging for some of y'all, okay? I'm just letting you know right now. It's going to be challenging for some of y'all, but what my challenge is going to be to you is to take just a few moments out of your day and look it up, okay? Because I'm not making anything up here, all right? But we're going to get right into it today. I'm going to be talking about this. It's a cult. It's basically a cult activity, and it's a lot closer than you think. We're going to give people right under a minute, and then we'll start, okay? Like I said, for those that are just coming in, I'm just letting you know, this one is going to be challenging for, I think, many of you actually, but everything I'm sharing is not anything new that I haven't said on this platform before, but I think this is a good opportunity to bring it back up again, and hopefully it will stick for some of you. Maybe it will, don't know, but I'm just going to use any opportunity I have to bring these things up because it's extremely important. Big shout out, of course, to the beautiful couple in the chat. And for everyone else that's coming in, making your way in, really appreciate that. Thank you. Making time out of your day to come on by. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much again for tuning in to this broadcast. I hope you guys having a wonderful day. Today is Tuesday, July the 22nd, 2025. And another nice day out. We've been having some really cooler days. Now, for some of y'all, when you hear these numbers, you're going to think that's cool. Trust me, in Arizona is actually cool. Right now it's 96 degrees out here, but we are under we've been having a bit of cloud cover these last few days. And I just checked the weather, and they mentioned something about a storm, 40-mile-an-hour winds rolling through. I'm going to tell you, yesterday I was out, went down the street to get something, and literally it was, I went in the store, I came out, and it was literally a wall of just dust that was just coming right at us. And I'm not exaggerating. It was, I've living out here, you do see the dust storms, but I never seen one move that fast. And it was like, because usually in our view, in our vistas out here, we see mountains kind of all around. And the mountains where I am, you always see them. And I didn't see anything. I mean, that's usually what happens when the dust storms come in. But this, it was just amazing to see how quickly it came in. Now, I mean, because I was like, man, I just went in the store, I came out, and that was it. So yeah, they're talking about rain, and we may get some rain, which out here is really always good, being in the desert. But it's a very interesting landscape we have here, and like I said again, for me, over time, and I was talking to Nicole just recently about this. I was like, I'm actually getting used to the heat, because it, it's not always like 118. I mean, there are days where it'll get pretty high, but then you have days like this where it's kind of neat. It's on a cooler side. You can actually spend a little bit more time outside, and but it's nice. It's nice other than that. But I hope you're doing well, and I hope you guys having a wonderful day or evening whenever you're watching this. Today, as I said in the beginning when I first turned this broadcast on, this one is going to be a challenging one, I know, for quite a number of you. But I promise you that everything I'm sharing, you can verify it yourself. The problem is that a lot of people don't want to, because if they verify it, it is going to challenge a certain belief that they've been holding on to for a very long time. And so when that gets challenged, there's instability. And when there's instability, it's like, okay, well, I don't know. What else do I need to grab on because you're taking this away from me or whatever. But I'm going to share something with you that many of your so-called teachers, people that are out here that claim to teach the Bible, or, be it from a Christian perspective or a Hebrew perspective, they somehow just miss over this thing. But it's true nonetheless. I mean, it's what it is. At the end of the day, it's going to come to what you choose to believe. But you can choose to believe whatever, just like I can choose to believe whatever as well. But that doesn't change the facts. You understand what I'm saying? Belief should not trump facts. At the end of the day, the facts are the facts are the facts. You can believe that I could believe I'm a 8-foot guy with, all I want, but the facts are I'm not. That doesn't change. So my belief isn't going to change my facts. You understand what I'm saying? It's just what it is. So, but yeah, I just want you to be very clear about that. Okay. So there will be some challenges that are going to be given here. Okay. Let's see, as we're getting into this, let's see, this weekend we had our class over on Saba University. And for those of you who were part of that, really appreciate you guys being there. And we're ramping up right now. I know numbers of you had signed up for the Facebook group that we created. That's going to be, you're going to be getting notifications like today, okay, on that, along with those who paid for the class, but for one reason or another, you weren't able to make it. That's fine. We're going to make it available for you as promised. So just check your email, and we'll have an email go out pretty soon letting you know that, hey, this is where you can go to get the video, to get everything else and all of that. You're not going to be left behind, okay? You don't have to worry about that. So, but Nicole did, I thought, a wonderful job. And yes, I am saying that for two reasons, because she is beautiful. She is amazing. She is my wife. Yeah. Well, that was three, right? But I'm also saying it because, yeah, it actually was. I actually learned a few things in it. The thing that really stuck out to me were, when people talk about fasting, like many of you, when you're in fasting, when anytime you hear fasting, most of you only are accustomed to that in the realm or in the sphere of the church or in the church world. And but in what she talked about, and because I want to actually touch on the whole fasting thing in just a moment, just not right this second, but there's like apps that help you to fast, like in other words, kind of make it kind of fun, when you're fasting or whatever. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that, and it was like some other things too that she was saying. I thought it was really, really good. But, again, if you're like, oh man, I was really trying to get to that class, I just didn't have it, whatever. But we'll be making that available for everyone over on sambatree.com. Just make sure just keep your eyes out. We'll let you know. I'll post it on a community page and let you know. Yeah, because if you missed the live version of it, that's fine. You'll still be able to connect and get the download of the video along with all the materials, along with membership into the group, into the Facebook group and all of that, where you can get all the support you need, see the different testimonies from different group members and all of that kind of stuff. So keep your eyes and ears open. We'll make that available for everybody. Okay. So again, that's over on sambatree.com. We'll talk more about Sambatree a little bit later. Okay. But again, I want to turn our attention to, unfortunate news. And that was, the news regarding brother Malcolm-Jamal Warner. and who had recently, you heard the story about him, his untimely death of drowning. And, he was on vacation with his family in Costa Rica. And, initially I heard, of course you go on social media, everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got something to say. It was really disgusting to me, and I honestly, I didn't even want to do a video on it, and I didn't, and I wasn't going to do a video with his name on it because I said, I don't want to make anything off of this person's death. That's crazy. You know what I mean? That's just crazy to me. Now, anybody else do it, that's you, but I don't know. I just better just, say whatever I want to say somewhere else. But anyway, you saw a lot of people doing that, of course, but then you had people doing the whole numerology thing. They were saying, okay, he died on July the 21st. If you, it's the 7th month, and you add the number 7 and divide it by 2 and then subtract 1, and then you got 2025. And if you put that as the denominator, and then you just do the square root of that, is going to come out that, whatever it is that you want. And I was like, okay, these people are nuts. These people are absolute nuts. And then you had the people, of course, that was trying to link it to, well, perhaps he was, this is what happens when you're in Hollywood, and when you sign a deal with the devil, this is what happens. Okay, well then that means your auntie and your uncle and your grandma and them probably signed a deal with the devil too, because they died, right? So if we're gonna say, because anybody that dies, we're gonna say they signed a contract with the devil. That's not the case for everybody, including people in Hollywood. Okay, there's some people who, unfortunately, the time will come when they check out. You know what I'm saying? Everyone has their own expiration date. Okay. So we don't really have that much control over that, but things do happen. And then I saw some of the other extremes. Someone did a video, and they said that Malcolm-Jamal Warner, he, what did he say? They said he set, what was it? It was something to the effect that he was the not set the standard. Oh, he redefined. That's what it was. He redefined black manhood or something. I was like, okay, this now we're getting a little okay. All right. And the man, first of all, Malcolm-Jamal Warner, he was one of those actors. He never saw him in any kind of troubles or anything like that. At least publicly, we're not aware of any. At least I'm not. It always seemed like he was on the positive thing and all of that. He did acting. He was mainly on small screen, but he also did music and producing, and he was in other things too. But he always seemed like he was not in the fray, so to speak. And so that's good. But to say that the man redefined black manhood, I mean, I was like, okay, how people do, like I was talking to my daughter about it. She said, yeah, you're never great until you die. All of a sudden now, he was this and that. And I'm like, okay, no, let's temper that a little bit. We can say pay our respects and keep it moving, when it comes to that. But, all of this other stuff is like, okay, yeah, you need to sit down now. But anyway, I came across this video clip. This is from NBC, and they actually went to the beach where, he met his end, unfortunately. And I think this is good to play because there's some things in there that I think a lot of people don't know, because I know I didn't know. I was just hearing bits and pieces, but I wanted to kind of hear, okay, what exactly happened? Was he on a boat or whatever? Because I heard some people saying, it's just another case of black people that don't know how to swim. And then people wanted to go on that whole narrative. And I was like, well, I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so here you go right here. Let me play this clip for you real quick, and they'll tell you exactly what went down.
The Cosby Show star Malcolm-Jamal Warner's life suddenly and shockingly ended over the weekend. You can see right now there's a red flag blowing in the wind here. That is a warning that people should not be swimming in these waters, and you can see some choppy waves out here. A source close to Warner tells NBC News that he was here with his wife and his young daughter. They were on vacation, and then on Sunday afternoon, things went horribly wrong. Authorities say that a current pulled him out to sea, People were able to get him back on land, but by then he had no vital signs. Authorities say it appears that he died from asphyxia by submersion. So this is the beach where all this unfolded, but really, as soon as you get here, even before you get onto the beachhead, you can see some warning signs for people who are coming to enjoy the day here. It says Corrientes de Resaca todo el año. Basically warning people there is a current here throughout the year. You can see there are warnings for surfers, there's warnings about wave conditions, and then take a look at this. This massive sign says you can survive a rip current. Clearly, they're warning people about the conditions that can develop, and unfortunately, the conditions appear to have pulled out Malcolm-Jamal Warner over the weekend. The source close to Warner says all signs point to this being a tragic accident, and now Warner's wife, according to that source, is trying to get his body back to the United States so they can prepare for a funeral.
So there you go. That's what happened. And I was thinking, it reminded me of, when we lived in Florida, it was under 10-minute drive to the beach. It was like under 10 minutes. So, you blink your eye, we were at the beach. And I remember seeing signs like that. They weren't, in this case, he's in Costa Rica, so part of the signs were in Spanish, but you had the other one that warns you about the riptides and all of that. And then also you see the red flags up there, all of those things. If you are someone who's ever lived near the beach, we've lived near the beach both in Florida and in California. And anytime you see those things, most people know you don't go. Now, this is not me or even a reporter for that matter blaming him for his own death or whatever, but these are the facts, and maybe he was just excited, after working his behind off, wanted to get a break and just said, man, I'm just going to jump in this water. But, the one thing we could definitely pull from this is if you're not familiar with those indicators when you go to the beach, if anything, make sure you're familiar with them. I would just definitely say that, because those riptides are not anything to play with at all. They're not. I've never been caught in one. And anytime I go to the beach, which has been a minute now, I usually probably go at most waist length. That's me. That's me personally. I grew up in the Jaws generation. So, I'm always thinking, I just need some room to run. You know what I mean? But that's me though. Okay. That's my scary self. Okay. But, when you do go to the beach, on a serious note, when you see those signs and stuff, especially those red flags, you want to pay very close attention to that. And there's also different apps and things out there. If you're planning a trip to go to the beach or whatever, make sure you get the 411 on that, because like I said, those riptides can be really something. I had a friend that I actually went to school with. This is years ago, and I remember him sharing with us, talking about how he and a friend, they were out on the beach, and that riptide took his friend out. You imagine you out there swimming with your friend or whatever. This was in high school. I think they were a little bit younger than that. And he said, just like that, his friend was gone. He didn't see him again. And there's many other stories out there like that too. So again, I mean, let's mourn the loss, but at the same time, let's kind of learn something from it too, to really take these signs and stuff that's out here very serious, when you're going to the beach and all of that, because, the ocean the ocean is going to be the ocean, and it can be a quite intimidating and scary place too on the other side. But nonetheless, don't let that stop you from going to the beach. Just learn from it and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, also look up his music. He was a really, I think he played the upright bass. He had his own band and all of that. A really good musician too. I don't know if many people knew about that. But make sure you check that out too, because he was very good. Everybody know him from the Cosby Show, but he was also a very good actor on the small screen. And I don't know if maybe someone can name it in the chat, any big screen movies he did. I don't know, but he definitely seemed like quite successful on the small screen. And he just seemed like a very chill person, So yeah, so I just wanted to take some time and, definitely acknowledge that, because for many of you, this was someone that you watched grow up. Him and I, we were the same age. He was 54, I'm 54. So I heard that, I was just like, wow, that's really something. So anyway, yeah, our hearts go out to the family and all of that. And yeah, let's keep moving. Life is a very precious thing. And it's something that we should always cherish, remember, and all of that. And that's what it should be. But when we see fools and idiots like the person that we're going to mention here that's trying to profit off of it, now that makes me sick. That makes me very sick and quite disgusted. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about a narrative that I have been seeing going on for quite some time now. I've seen this I really started seeing this not so much when I was in the church world. Okay, just my quick background again. I was in Christianity, close to 40 years, I guess. Close to 40 years. And then from there, I finally made the decision to come out of the church world. And then, there was a few years where I said, I want nothing to do. I still believe in the Bible, God, and all of that. But, it's just, I said, the church stuff, I just can't keep going through this whole heartbreak over and over again, because my children were starting to get older now. I didn't want them to be exposed to that, but I still wanted them to have a deep respect and, for the Bible and everything associated with that. So we took it upon ourselves to be, a home church for the most part. When I say home church, it wasn't nothing official. It was just, we didn't go to church. How about that? And so yeah, so we, for our children, we infilled some of the stuff with their training with things like Veggie Tales and other, Christian cartoons and things like that. The amount of Christian cartoons we would get them, we would do Bible studies and things like that. And then, Christmas time, we did the whole, when there were plays and stuff that was going on, we always did that. Halloween, we did the whole, not Halloween, but it was Hallelujah night. Hallelujah night. Yeah, we ain't gonna dress like demons. We gonna just dress up like we gonna dress up like Bible characters on a demon night. Okay, so but yeah, we would do that kind of stuff, and we went through all of that. But again, you start seeing some of the same things play out over and over again, and for some years we opted to kind of stay away from it until we saw the video from was the pastor. The Negro Land pastor, I can't recall his name right now. I'm sure y'all put that in the chat, but yeah, he basically, really the stuff that he was rolling out, it really began to resonate with us then. And I was like, wow, you mean to tell me, okay, this all makes sense. This literally all makes sense now. And I started to, we started connecting the dots in our head, and everything made sense. Everything made sense of what he was laying out. Again, as I'm talking about this individual, Stephen Darby, thank you. Always can count on y'all to make sure I get these names. Stephen, Pastor Darby. I am not in any way, shape, or form trashing him or anything of the sort. Okay, none of that. This man was preaching what he knew. And that's all I left it at. As I said, these idiots that it was a while back, I was talking about Darby and the stuff that he was putting out. I think it was the whole Negro Land thing, because we actually revisited it and found there was some discrepancies there, but that had no reflection on him as a person. I said in the video, I said he was teaching what he knew, and of course people didn't want to hear that. They just took off and ran and wanted to assume that, try to, say that I was, talk about him and dogging out his family and all this other stuff. And no, you just don't know how to listen. And that's not what it was at all. So we heard that and went through the whole experience with, that was the doorway into the world, the Hebrew world and the Hebrew space, and very exciting. and, start, the thing I really liked about it was it really challenged me to dig deeper, because I was like, wait a minute, if they were hiding this, what else are they hiding? And so that flipped a switch in me to keep digging and to keep asking questions and to keep researching and all of that. But then I noticed that when I started asking too many questions, then folks start getting mad at me. I was like, well, wait a minute now. I thought this was liberty. I thought this was freedom land. I thought we'd have made it to the promised land, baby. I thought, yeah, I thought this was it. We can ask anything we want now. We out of bondage. We in freedom now. Well, no, you couldn't. There were certain things I couldn't ask. There were certain things I couldn't challenge. And the moment you start asking some certain questions, now all of a sudden, now the devil's in you. So I was like, okay, I've seen this play before. And then I really started seeing what it really was. And that's when my wife and I, my family, we did a collective moonwalk. I know y'all seen one person do a moonwalk. I don't think you've ever seen 4 people do a moonwalk together. For real. We did a family moonwalk. And because we began to see some things, and the more we began to dig and ask questions, it was like, oh, okay, nope, I see what's going on here. And no hate to the people that are still in it. But here we're going to tell the truth. That's what we're going to do. And so, that's just kind of the skinny, if you will, on my background. And we've got a whole playlist. I think it's called Leaving the Hebrew Matrix or something like that. You can go through that. Plenty of videos where I go into much deeper and give you more details on that. But anyway, let me share my screen here of this individual here that I'm talking about. I know many of you have seen this woman here, but it's not just her. I'm just, make that very clear, because there are many, many others that I have seen, and I'm sure many of you have seen as well. And it's gotten to the point right now for me where it just makes me angry. I'm not a subscriber of this individual, but I'm very familiar with them. It's her, and there's like I said, there's quite a few people. It's seemingly, not exclusive, but seemingly, it's always seemed to hover around religious black women. Now, does that speak for all religious black women? No. Is she a representative of all black women on the planet? No, she's not. Let me be clear before someone loses their stuff. I'm not saying it, okay? But do these individuals have very large followings? Absolutely. Do they have very large followings of mostly black women? Absolutely. That's the demographic that we're talking to, okay? If this does not apply to you, then it does not apply to you. I don't know how other way I can say it, but that's what it is, okay? Because I know we have people who have a very short attention spans. And if you are one of those, I'm being very thoughtful and kind in saying you may have your leave now, okay? But we're going to get into it and we're going to talk about it. I ain't going to tear it down and all this other stuff, but I'm just going to tell you what it is. When I saw her, this came up on my timeline. YouTube will suggest stuff on here, and I'm not going to even play her video because it just really made me that angry when I just saw it. And it says, prophecy fulfilled. Malcolm-Jamal Warner has passed. And the video itself, she's talking about, this is this Celeste, her name is Celeste something. And, she is basically talking about, I think it was a couple of years ago, she did a video where she may mention that I did a video. Yeah, because I did a video a couple of years ago and I called out his name and I said that, judgment is coming. Judgment is coming. But like I said, again, I cannot stress enough. She's not the only one. She is not the only one. There are many out here who specialize in any time they open their mouth, every time they upload a video, it is always hovering around death, damnation, and judgment on other people. Always. It's like nothing is ever good in your world. These individuals will gladly take every bad news item that comes out. If there's a flood somewhere, if there's a fire somewhere, if someone gets shot and killed or they get ran over by a car, they will have a video on that. See, you can't play with God. It's judgment. There's a fire somewhere. See, you can't play with God. There's judgment. You can't play with the Most High. You can't play with the Most High on this stuff. You know, someone gets sick. See, you can't play with the Most High. I'm telling you, you cannot play with him. I don't know if y'all catching what I'm saying here. The Most High. Okay, we're going to get into who exactly is the Most High, because there's many of you Negroes, and I say that respectfully, that are repeating things, and you don't know the history of it because you don't take the time to look these things up yourself. Okay, I'm not talking down on you. I am being a swift kick on your behind, though. Okay, with a smile on my face and an arm reaching out to you and saying, come on up, let's go. Okay, so yeah, I am coming today, but I'm also here to help you too. Okay, but yeah, so I see this stuff happening all the time, and every freaking time something happens, every time, it's always a judgment. And it's something I've said over and over again. I said, listen, this is the trends. I said, it's typically, not exclusively, but typically what I'm seeing is, in most cases, it's older black women who are very religious who will always focus on this stuff. It's always judgment. There's some young lady going viral now, I think, on TikTok. And she going in this whole thing, you know, going through this whole thing like, I saw a vision of heaven, oh God, and then I went to heaven and I went straight to hell, you know, and going through all of this, thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people liking and sharing and commenting, and yeah, this really resonates with me. Nobody knows anything about this woman, nothing. But what she says, it just really resonates with me. Well, if someone is, the content they're putting out is always death, damnation, and judgment, and that's resonating with you, that says a lot about you. And what it specifically says to me is, when I do see this a lot, in many cases, the people who claim to be the prophet or the prophetesses, in most cases, their marriages aren't right. And what they're doing is they are projecting the frustrations that they have in their own house, using the Bible as a megaphone, if you will, / filter to get their frustrations out. So what you hear is, oh, the God is speaking to me. But those that are a little bit more discerning are asking, okay, why is it that 99.999% of the time you up here, where's your husband? Not to say your husband always got to be on your shoulder, but why is it that you always running your mouth about judgment, 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 death, 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 damnation, 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 curses, 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 and that's it. Let me ask you something, and I've challenged people on this before, and I'm speaking as someone who also embraced this at one time. Why is when it comes to the Bible has made some very, straight to the point promises, right? Now, does the Bible talk about judgment and things happening to people if you don't do this, that, or whatever? It sure does. But the Bible also talks about blessings. It also talks about healings. It also talks about raising people from the dead. So let me ask you something. How many videos have you actually seen of these same people who have built entire platforms calling everything out as a judgment and whatever, versus their content as it pertains to them healing people? They shall lay hands on the sick and watch them recover. Right? Greater works than these shall you do. Remember that? raising people from the dead, those promises. Why is it that anytime I bring this up, the room always goes silent? I don't get it. Literally, it always goes silent anytime I bring this up. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now, this is in the Bible too. I'm reading the Bible. It's saying we're supposed to be doing all this stuff. That's what the Bible says. What's the qualification? You got to believe. No, brother, no, it ain't. You got to do all the laws, statutes, and commandments. You got to do all of them. Nigga, you ain't doing all of them. Well, that's the point. None of us, then why make it a promise if we were supposed to do this? Why promise and tell people this is what you're going to do if you believe and it ain't happening? Why is it that a good percentage of the very people that stand on this book are suffering from things like diabetes and high blood pressure? But you can look to a news article that talks about a black man who was out with his family living his best life. He drowns, but then all of a sudden now, oh, it's a judgment. It's a judgment from the Most High because the Lord done spoke to me. But he ain't speak to you about them pills you taking every day. Huh? He ain't speaking to you about the fact that your husband in the background, like, what am I going to do with this woman? And can I find a way out? Oh, I could tell you some stories now. Not necessarily this woman that I showed you, but it was another woman out here. That was her whole thing. I don't know if she's still out here or not. I don't know. I can't even remember her name. But she huge platform. And was another one out here that was like, oh, the Most High, he is speaking right now. And that's what the Lord says and all this stuff. Meanwhile, this same woman behind the scenes having some, let's say, affair, if you will, with another Hebrew teacher that was out here. Oh, I don't need to drop names, y'all. I don't need to do that. I'm just telling you what I know. And I've known this for years. For years I knew this. And I just sat back. I said, well, I wonder when they're going to be honest and tell people the truth. I wonder when that's going to happen. I saw the same stuff. They handled that the same way they handle the stuff in the church. But these are the same people that want to say, oh, you got to fear God because he's striking people down left and right. But you doing this kind of stuff behind the scenes. You understand? So anyway, but there's a cult. It's like a cultic activity. That's the only way it's not even a cult because it's not hidden. That's what the word occult means. It means basically hidden. It's nothing hidden. It's all around you. Many of you are subscribed and you listen to these people out here that they'll turn everything into a judgment. And what you're really hearing is their own dissatisfaction with their own lives. Ever heard the statement, misery loves company? Well, that's exactly what you're subscribed to in many of these cases, misery. And what they'll try to tell you, well, somebody got to tell it. Somebody got to tell it and all this stuff. Okay, how about get your house in order? Why is it that your kids ain't talking to you? Okay, what about that? What's the solution for that? Why is there a big rift up in your house? Well, the Bible says the judgment is going to begin in the house of the Lord, and he's bringing a sword that's going to split the husband and the wife from the husband and all this other stuff. Then you keep that, okay? I don't want that. Okay, what about the cases where families are coming together? I want that, okay? Where you can come together and be in truth. Okay, what about that miracle? You can believe. It's a lot easier for you to interpret the fact that your husband ain't really digging your stuff because you out here every 5 minutes blabbing your mouth about judgment and your husband like, oh, when this woman shut up? And you see it, you know it. But what's happening is people will interpret that as, well, hey, listen, judgment's beginning in the house. Not everybody's he's bringing a sword in the house. No, that ain't no sword. That's you. That's you, the sword. And your sword, you basically stabbing your own husband. Some of y'all stabbing your own children. You stabbing all these people around you. Hurt people, hurt people. I know you've heard of that. But this is what's happening. And a lot of these individuals that you're listening to out here, that's what they do. And they have no respect, even for someone like a Malcolm-Jamal Warner. I mean, they just barely pulled the man's body out of the water, and this woman already out here taking laps. Like I said it was going to happen. Literally, all these people do, they'll go through their little divine Rolodex and find any kind of name and just be like, okay, let's see, Bill Cosby, Nipsey Russell, let me see, Don Knotts, and let me see who else I can think of this in my mind. Oh, who else? Charlie Sheen. Oh, who else? Benji the dog. How about that? Who else? Leslie Nielsen and Jimmy Swaggart and Puff Daddy and let me see who else? O.J. Simpson and let me see, Tommy Davidson and all, whatever name come to their mind, they just make it up and then just do a quick video on it. And then when that day comes, they'll see, I told you. Aren't you tired of that? I mean, you would think we got some heavy stuff going on in the world. Aren't you tired of that? Are you willing to hit your cart on that kind of foolishness? But a lot of people do. A lot of people do. Now, this is the part where we're going to get into some history here. Okay. So I hope that I don't lose you on this, because this to me is probably one of the most important parts of this video. Now, many of you, if you're a Christian, usually you hear a lot of Hebrews say this, but both, they'll use the term the Most High. You'll say all praises to the Most High. Okay. Now I want you to follow me in this part here. Okay. Because a lot of people say this, but they do not know the origins of that. Okay. I'm just going to take you through it very quickly, but I really encourage you to take the time to look this up on your own. Now, the Most High, a word for it, I'm going to say the first level back, I will say, going back if we were to go back one step back in history, it comes from the Hebrew word El Elyon, okay? And which means the Most High. All right. So let me pull this up here for you. All right. So when you go on, YouTube, for example, you see all of these Christian and Hebrew videos on. They got praise and worship, El Elyon and where El Elyon and Yahweh, the same God. And, well, that's probably them trying to get to the truth there. El Elyon, Elyon. Here you got Tony Evans. He's teaching on El Elyon and El Shaddai. Elyon, the commander of the Elohim, and the Most High, holy is his name. Different things. You just go through it. You could do a search for it, and you'll find all kinds of videos and worship videos on this name, El Elyon. And so a lot of people just take and run with that and say, oh, that's what it means. God, the Bible God, is the Most High. He is the God above all gods. But what if I were to tell you that, yes, that's part of it, but it goes a lot deeper than that. And if we're about going into the original, getting into the original of things, the origin, the real meaning of things, for those of you who are very consistent and persistent and want to get to do your DNA studies and figure out that Moses and Aaron, they were all black. They look like your uncle and auntie and all of them. If you got the aptitude for that, then you have the aptitude for this. Okay. So don't check out on me now. Okay, so El Elyon, I'll just give you this real quick here. Like I said, again, we actually covered this in a little bit more detail, much greater detail in our series, the Who and the El series. All right, but I'll give you, this is just going to be a very, very quick thing of coverage of this. So El Elyon, the Most High, all praises to the Most High. El Elyon, God Most High, and I'm mentioning this because you have people the people who push these prophecies out, they will oftentimes make this statement, okay? They will oftentimes make this statement. And people who follow them will make this statement too. All praises to the Most High. Very quickly on the screen, and again, I am challenging you to look this up on your own. Well, El Elyon, it actually comes from, the first thing I will tell you is it actually comes from two different gods. I'll get to that in a moment. But it actually dates back, on this chart, it shows the 13th century BCE. But what I'm going to show you, what I'm going to tell you, it actually goes a lot further back than that, okay? It goes back to, they're going back as far as, was it 750 BCE. 750 BCE. That's a long time ago. All right. And during that time, it was El Elyon. It wasn't El Elyon. It was actually two gods, El and Elyon. And this was the Aramaean kingdom, the Aramaean kingdom. All right. This is going way back. We're talking in Syria. So they had two gods. It was El, which was a prime god. It was like the god supposed in the pantheon of gods in that region. El was the supreme god. All right. And then Elyon, that was another god here. And so over time, what you'll find in that region, you have this thing called syncretism, where basically people will just borrow from their, different practices. That's what you had going on. El, which he is the supreme god. You'll see the presence of El in, of course, in Ugaritic texts. You'll see him in what else? Canaanite for sure. You'll see him mentioned in other groups as well, all within that region. He was considered the supreme god. But it's another thing too I want to mention. El was also referred to as what? The bull god. The bull god. You remember a few weeks ago we did a video where we talked about, let me see if I can find this. What was it? Israel. Sacrifice. Let me see here. Oh, here it is. Let's see if I can pull it up here for you. Okay, here it is. Here it is. You remember a few weeks ago, I pulled this up here. Biblical red heifer ritual comes to life in rehearsal ceremony. This is in Israel, and they actually have a bull that they are actually burning as a sacrifice. All right. This is all part of this is their connection. Did they get this do you find this kind of sacrifice happening in the Bible? Absolutely. Where did it come from? It reaches all the way back to the worship of El. He's referred to, one of his names, he was referred to as the bull god. The bull god. Okay? I take this as slow as I need to. But again, I am really encouraging you to take the time and look this stuff up yourself. It's very easy. You got ChatGPT. It will confirm this for you. All right. So it started off going all the way back. This is before the Bible was even written. Before the Bible. We're talking centuries before the Bible was written. So don't come to me and say, well, they borrowed from what the Hebrews were doing. No, it wasn't that. It was the other way around. And so anyway, back up. So it starts in, let me bring this back up here. So this goes all the way back to this. All right. So it goes all the way back to this. And then, fast forward, then it mentions, you just follow the timeline. You see these other groups, they begin to catch on it and they put their little spin to it. And then it isn't until we get to like first century, where you start seeing what they call the Jewish people, they begin to latch on it. And then what they did is they actually began to combine the two together. El and Elyon, which were two deities, they combined them together. And that's where we get the Most High. El is the God above all gods. That's where this comes from. So when you're reading through, these historical texts and all of that, they'll try to spin it a certain way and say, well, at the end of the day, it was just a general term for, a God that's the Most High. No, there was one God and that's it. According to the biblical view, that there was one God above all gods and that's it. But the history beyond the Bible, going before the Bible, well, this is where the Bible got it from. This is where they got it from. Okay, let me show you something else here. And again, I'm gonna keep on saying this over and over again. I want you to look this up. I want you to challenge what I'm saying. I want you to do that, because that's the only way you're going to learn. Okay, don't just take my word for it. I want you to look this up on your own. I'm trying to pull this up here. Okay, here we go. So it dropped off, but it looks like I'm still here. We'll see. Let me just give it a moment here and make sure. Just give me a 1. Let me know I'm still here on the live and all that, because I hit the reconnect button, and hopefully I'm still here. We're not, this ain't gonna go too long. I'm just waiting here because there's a little delay here. So with the broadcast, normally with these live broadcasts, there's always like a little delay. Give me a 1, put a 1 in the chat. Let me know that I'm still here and you can still hear me and everything's good before I continue. Let's see. This is going really, it's looking really delayed here on my part here. Let me see. Okay, I'm getting a 1 here. Okay. So as long as you guys can hear me, I'm just going to continue. Either way, I'm recording it, so you will see the recording afterwards. Someone said it's thin timing in and out, but I can still hear you. Okay, yeah, as long as you can hear me, great. Great. Okay, good. So let me just go ahead and continue. So El, as you see on your screen here, you got El, Elyon, and Yahweh. You could take a screenshot of this. I would encourage you to do so. So El, Canaanite deity, also referred to as the bull El. He was a bull god. Elyon, this was a deity going all the way back, about 750 BCE. And he's referred to as like the a grandfather of the gods in the Phoenician world. And then Yahweh. Yahweh, this is where it's Hebrew, but they also borrowed some things from Egypt with the formation of Yahweh. Okay. And again, I go through in detail on all three of these things and more, in our series that we've been doing. So Who in the L series. So we do talk about that in greater detail. Okay. So when you're saying all praises to the Most High Yah, you are actually acknowledging three gods. Sorry. You're acknowledging three gods. The Most High Yah. The Most High. Who's the Most High? El Elyon. Who was El Elyon? It was two unique gods. Yah, he's another god. So you're talking three different deities here. This is where this comes from. And why am I taking the time to go through this? Because folks, listen, the reason why I'm taking the time to go through this is because as an individual, as a man, as a black man, whatever, I have grown very tired of watching our people for years and years and years, dedicating ourselves to this belief system that if we just hold on a little while longer, everything's going to work out. Everything's going to just flow together and it's just all going to work out. And if we just hold on, meanwhile, we're just sitting back and watching everything else. I mean, it seems like it's falling in place for everybody else. the most faithful of most demographics, seemingly most faithful to the pray when it comes to praying, when it comes to church, when it comes to church attendance, and when it comes to Bible study. They did a study on this. The most faithful in most groups are Black Americans. And then you go to Africa, I'm sure it's off the charts with that, obviously. You compare the continent of Africa with, let's say, Europeans or whatever, Africans going to outshine them when it comes to their faithfulness to the Bible. But when we look at the landscape right now, when we look at what's going on amongst darker skinned people in this world, what do we see? All you got to do is look through your timeline. Right now, I just heard they're trying to do a boycott. Black Americans are doing a boycott against African-owned businesses. For what? These Africans, they're saying some crazy things about us or whatever, and we're going to show the power of the dollar. And I've said this before, have you ever noticed that the only time that it seems that the biggest strength that Black folks have when it comes to showing economic power is tearing other businesses down? Have you ever noticed that? It's never like, hey, listen, this business is going through some stuff. Let's get behind it, and we're going to uplift this business, and we're going to make sure this business never fails. And it does happen, but it seems like it doesn't happen as much as the boycott situation is going on, is concerned. And that seems strange to you. Let me give you this. I am doing a project right now, like always doing a project, but I'm doing a project right now. I think some of you will find this quite interesting, especially if you're into sci-fi. And what I did was is that I took a snapshot of all the things of what we call Black culture, all the good things and all the things that aren't so good. Everything from reading levels, our interest in math, sciences, and engineering, to our current health status, to, brain functions, our temperaments, family structures, of course, education levels, which is redundant when I was talking about literacy, businesses when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to networking and all of that. I took a bunch of things and I put it all together. And I said I want to put together a scenario. And I was playing off of, you remember this movie out here, I think it was made like in the 80s, and you can find it on YouTube. And it basically, the scenario was, these space aliens came down to Earth and said, hey, we want to take all the Black people, from Earth, and we're going to take y'all away. Never told them where they were going. It just said, we're going to take all the Black people. So I combined that concept with, some other science fiction things, scenarios I was, I'm familiar with and all of that, right? So I came up with this scenario. What I did was this. I said, I didn't even call them Black folks because I didn't want to mention Black people or Africa or anything like that, because, these LLMs like Grok or ChatGPT, the moment you say that, then it's like, well, now, hey, you can't, trouble don't last always, it's trying to steer you into, and I'm like, nope, I want to go to this like as if I'm writing a novel, but I want what I'm writing about to be factually based. So I'm going to, cosmic slop, go ahead. And so, so what I did was I took all of this information, and you should see my prompt. My prompt was huge because I was just, everything I can think of, I was just putting all this in there. Like I said, the good and the bad or whatever. And so what I said was this. I said, okay, gave it a whole backstory. Gave this group of people an entire backstory, talked about how they started off, this is how they operated and all this stuff, and they this or whatever. And then I brought in slavery. Then I brought in how they were reintroduced to society, but, there were roadblocks that were put in there, economic, blah, 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 whatever. They talked about family structures, talked all that stuff, crime, all of that, right? And so I said, then what happened was the people of Earth said, and I didn't say Earth, I called it something else. The people of this planet said, you know what? We had enough of these people. What we're going to do is there is a planet nearby that's just like Earth. It's just like Earth. Trust me, y'all, this is all related. And it's just like Earth, everything. It has all the natural resources. It has everything that Earth has, except us. Us meaning non-black folks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put all of y'all in some ships and we're going to ship y'all up to this planet. We ain't going to give you nothing. You go on out there. You got everything you need on that. You got a whole planet and you can just do whatever you want with it. So I said, let's just do a scenario. Let's just thought exercise. And so I said, and then I want you to give me what would happen to those people 100 years out from the time they landed to 100 years later. And man, let me tell you something. It was very I would say it's eye-opening, but it was eye-opening in the sense of seeing it in a different angle, because it's one thing to be in the mix of all of this stuff that's happening now, but it's another thing to see it in a situation where it's actually played out 100 years without actually physically time traveling, right? And because when you play some of these things out that we address here on this platform, and if it doesn't adjust, it's going to get worse. And one of the things, just off the top of my head, it talked about a significant population decline. It talked about the constant infighting. There was no real development of technology at all. And it was amongst some other things too. On the flip, it talked about how people eventually started learning to work together, but it was literally saying this stuff. And I'm gonna share, because I want to do a separate video on this. It talked about how, but still the people had to be careful of each other because they couldn't trust one another. Very detailed. And so I'm gonna, like I said, now this is what, again, I use like a combination of ChatGPT and other platforms or whatever, and just fed it into it. And I said, let me see what y'all say on it. What do you think on this based off of this information? How do you see this group of people playing out over the next 100 years? What do you think? And so, yeah, I played it out. And so, and I also talked about religion as well. I did a whole section on religion. What religion would look like. One of the things I was sharing with Nicole yesterday, I said, as Christianity is in fact on a decline, and it is, what you're going to see, the next gods that people are going to turn to is going to be AI. That's going to be the next gods, the next deities that people are going to turn to. And we're seeing a preview of that playing out right now, because you'll be able to customize it. Black folks have already been primed with this. You want to know why I'm saying that? Because when you look at the Hebrew narrative, for example, when you listen to the Hebrew narrative, what is the Hebrew narrative based off of? The customization of your deity. See, most other people, they don't really care that much. They just, when they think of God, they just think he's just some shining whatever, But as black folks, we really want to talk about, yeah, he had full lips and he had an afro and he had, he had a beard and, he was like a strong black man. Well, that's the precursor to what AI can offer you now. You can customize whatever it is you want to worship. You can customize it. What we're seeing right now is the precursor to the next level of what we're going to see, I believe, black folks get into, and other people too, not just black people. But I think if anything, when it comes to religion, for black folks, the next step is going to be, it's going to be an AI based belief system, because you'll be able to customize what you want to believe. We're seeing it right now. You got Hebrew teachers out here right now that are using ChatGPT to customize origin stories of black folks. They're bringing up they're making all this stuff up and feeding it in there and trying to get ChatGPT to say stuff that ain't even factually accurate. because the people who are listening, they don't even understand the technology. All they hear is, oh, well, ChatGPT said that we're the best people on the planet. ChatGPT said that we actually are the true Hebrew Israelites. ChatGPT says that Jesus was black. ChatGPT said, and that's all you need. That's all you need, without even understanding the technology. Because ultimately, what is it all centered around? A deity, a God that looks like you. And this is what AI is offering. And because religion has been a very big part of what we call black culture, you're seeing right now a pivot into that. That is happening now. I'm not talking in the future. I'm literally saying right now it's happening. If you're part of a belief system whose primary focus is to make sure that every day you're reminded that this deity looks like you and these other people in the book look like you, and that is the precursor to what we're seeing right now happening with AI, a customizable deity. So when it comes to, this is why we have to deal with this kind of stuff here. Bringing it back home, and then we're done here. When we're talking about this whole thing with, these evil, demonic people that are out here that will use their religion. They don't even know what they're talking about. All praises to the Most High. What the little history lesson that I just gave you, folks, this has been out here. But how many people actually take the time to look this stuff up? They don't, because we go by feeling. Because if you take this, but Dwayne, see what happened, but you're taking something away from me. I refuse to believe that. I bind that up in the day, but I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But it's true anyhow. It doesn't matter if you don't want to hear it or not. It's true. And people are if this religion, let me say this. Again, I'm going to take you right back to your belief system, your Bible. Your Bible says they will lay hands on the sick and watch them recover. How many people can honestly say that there ain't no black folks out here that are sick, but yet are the most faithful to this thing? Why are we not seeing that? You could do a whole channel about judgment, about pronouncing death curses on people. You could do a whole channel on that, calling out white people and saying that white people are going to be judged and they're getting the judgment now and they're falling right now and they're scared because God is coming. Why is it that your same God can't heal somebody, can't heal your children, can't heal your marriage, can't heal these things? Why is that? Why is that? And why are you not putting a demand on that? Why? You understand what I'm saying? But it's easy for you because to listen to, oh, I gotta be scared. Oh, you better be careful. Scared, fear. But what about people actually enjoying their life? Families actually coming together. Men and women really learning to fall in love with one another. What about that? What about children all of a sudden wanting to get their mind right and wanting to, all of a sudden they're doing big and great things and all this stuff? And, what about that? What about the miracle of that? What about the miracle of your family members that have been dealing with things like cancer and some of these other diseases and all of that, and the miracle of you going in there, laying your hands on them? Why is that? Why are you not holding that as an account, saying that, hey, wait a minute, why is this not happening? How many millions and not billions of dollars, and I'm talking black folks now, black folks have collectively invested into this thing, but yet we have very little to show for it. Think about that. Think about all them building funds that you have given to. Think about all them thousands of dollars and stuff that you've given to this thing, and you got very little to show for it. Very little. Well, you know, it's in his time. Think about this. You got children out here. When we talk about the Epstein thing, and I told you, forget about Epstein. Let's talk about the Atlanta being like number 2 in the nation when it comes to human trafficking. And many of those people that are being trafficked are black women and black girls. But yet the culture has made that so normal, people just throw their hands like, oh, well, it's no big deal. But Epstein, we got to get Epstein. Before we get to Epstein, let's talk about Atlanta. Let's talk about Mississippi, which is not that far behind. Let's talk about Nevada, because you got a lot of folks, you got black folks going through there as well. You got other people too, but let's talk about black folks that are in this thing, that are trapped in this human trafficking, what we call slavery system. Atlanta, you got some of the most biggest, the most so-called anointed churches in Atlanta, but it's also known as a place where you got some of the most biggest human trafficking rings going on there. And you telling me Bryant ain't got nothing to say about that? Nothing. But we're going to lay hands on this. But you can't do, because it's not happening. It's not. Okay, you're going to have to wake up. And so instead, what this religion has given you is not a fulfillment of healings and all this other stuff, the blessings upon blessings upon blessings, but you identify yourself with curses. How am I anointed? How do I know I'm the chosen? How do I know I'm the apple of God's eye? Well, look at the curses. Look at all the curses. That's how we know who we are. Huh? Yes, you got people out here that are saying this. I used to say it. And so when you're trapped in this mindset, that's your whole worldview. It's always that. It's always damnation, 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 judgment, 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 death, death, death. That's all it is. People do die. It's this part of life. It's part of the whole circle of life. But there's also a lot of people that are having a lot of wonderful things that are going on here. But even when those wonderful things happen, people still get mad and jealous and all that kind of, they want to tear that down. So I'm just here to tell you again, because I saw what this is in this cult, if you will, that's here now, you know, this whole thing of, you know, like I said, these are individuals, like I said, largely made up, but not exclusively. We see religious black women of a certain age that like to carry this ideology around, where they're always pointing to everything that's happening as death and damnation and judgment. You know, and, you know, it's, we got to point those individuals out. You remember, what was it? The Lake Lanier in Georgia. Lake Lanier in Georgia, you got this thing going on where folks are talking about, oh, that lake is cursed. See, I don't know, these white people, they better pay attention. That lake is cursed. That lake is going after white people. Then you remind them, oh yeah, you know Usher's baby, he drowned in that lake too. And last I checked, the baby was black. So was that baby cursed too? Well, you know, that's different. Well, you know, and then you start mentioning all these other black folks who also died in that lake. Oh, the ancestors are mad at them too. Isn't it interesting when we look at, like I said, and it's not just, I'm talking more biblical stuff, but you can also look at some of these other African religions, and Africans, I ain't leaving you out on this too, because y'all just as guilty of this BS too. When you look at voodoo, when you look at some of these other African practices or religious practices, not all, but many of them, isn't it interesting that many of these practices, when it comes to the cursing part, seems like the curses always work on other Africans. It doesn't seem like it can't drive out the colonizer, but it sure enough can work on black folks. You have black folks, you say something wrong to one of the elders, poof, they turn into a coconut or something, you know. It works on them. But the white man, he come in with tanks and everything else, and helicopters and machine gun, all this other stuff. And ain't the ancestors, they're like, I'm sorry. Bleep, bloop, bloop. They ain't got no power then. Well, we got to get back to our ancestor gods. That's what we got to get to. Yeah, the ancestor gods, they sat on the shore when they was shipping our behind on those ships. And you know what they were doing? Don't let the dog hit you. Bye. See you. See you when I see you. That's why you ain't gonna never catch me at all going to some ancient African gods or anything like that. You got to be out of your whole freaking mind to think that. You want to talk about the greatest shade thrown under the bus when it comes to that whole nonsense? Oh, we're going to go back to our African gods. They're going to show you. But then you find out, oh, yeah, well, it struck Jimmy up the street because he was looking at me funny, and I had some chicken bones I threw out there, and don't you know Jimmy, he fell down and broke his neck. Okay, now take the chicken bones and put it on the white man's steps, and let's see where that, put the chicken bones on ISIS steps. How about take them chicken bones and put them, you know what I'm saying, and tear down some of these drug houses or whatever. How about, why the chicken bones don't work there? But they gonna work on Jimmy though. Anyway, let me get the J.A. Loretta. Let me here's right here. We're done here, but I just wanted to cover that. He says his ways are higher than our ways. Just got that last week when asking these same questions. I said that wasn't good enough an answer. And he said, okay, then I guess it's hell for you. You can't run from these things. You can't run from these questions anymore. Maybe the generation before, you just take it in and that's it. But I'm telling you right now, those days are over. You're going to have to start demanding some questions because there's too many people out here that are checking out way too early. And some of y'all out here that are so quick to try to link up Malcolm-Jamal's death to some type of judgment, then my challenge to you is this. Haul your whole ass down to wherever he is right now, lay hands on him and raise him from the dead. I'm waiting. Bring your camera. I'll send you a camera. Go down there and do that. Do that thing. Go big. Go on, do it. Well, it don't work that way, because see, you can't put a demand on him and, hey, his ways are above my ways and his thought. Go on down there. Go on down there. Well, I can't do that. No, it's time. It's time to put up or shut up. It's time to put up and shut up. There's too many folks out here that have got some real problems here. And what we have been doing, it ain't working. And this nonsense that's going on right now, where you got folks out here that are turning every person's misfortune into some judgment, they need to be checked. And I don't need to sit up here and call people's names. I don't need to do that. You guys know the people exactly who I'm talking to because some of y'all subscribe to them and you still listen to them anyway. But those days are over. Those things are up, and it's time for you to wake up, and it's time for you to start asking some real questions. And we're going to keep on doing it, and we're going to encourage you to do the same. Okay, everything I said here and shared here, I encourage you to look this stuff up. You got too many free tools out here to do it, and it will give you the answer in less than 30 seconds. Now it's up to you to want to do that. Okay, I can't make you do that, but it's up to you to do that. All right. So in this video today, we looked at when you talk about all praises to the Most High, we just did a simple breakdown of what that means, going backwards, looking at the Most High, which comes from the Hebrew, which is El Elyon, which isn't really Hebrew because it goes back even further than that, because El and Elyon were actually two distinct, they were two unique gods. It wasn't until the Jews came around and they said, oh, we're going to syncretize this stuff and we're going to slap them together and make them one God and say that El Elyon which means still going to keep its meaning of being the most high God, but it's going to be the most high for us. But it actually didn't start there. It actually came back much further than that. And then as you start going through the Bible, for our research group I posted something a couple of days ago, looking at Daniel. It's Daniel and Daniel. Daniel, the book of Daniel actually comes from it was actually inspired from a much earlier account written in stone about someone who's also named that, much earlier than the Bible. And their names mean the same exact thing. Guess what happened? These Jews, they came along, they saw it, and they were like, you know what? We're going to borrow some from that, and we're going to make it our own. Oh boy, you start going through the Bible, when you really start going through it for real, and stop depending on your preacher, stop depending on your YouTube pastor to tell you this stuff. Once you start doing this on your own, your eyes will be open for real, and you'll have even more questions. But it's a good way to begin getting on the right track for real. All right. So we're here for you. And thank you so much for tuning in. But we're going to keep on challenging these people. And you need to do the same, because this death cult, that's it. I'm done with that. Leave Malcolm-Jamal alone. Let him be wherever he is right now. Let that man be. He ain't got nothing to do with no judgment or anything like that. Let that man go on and, be there for his family and all that kind of stuff. But stop with the foolishness, because every time I see that, I will be calling that out, because that's enough. Now you need to sit your whole behind down. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, you guys take care. And at least, if you have any questions or whatever comments, leave them below. Just be respectful. Okay. All right. You guys take care. And we'll be talking again soon. Take care now.